AP, we're back, man.
Yeah, hey, let me just get my chair right.
Come on. 3 times you think you get the chair right.
No way. I know.
You're on this side last time.
Round 3. Yeah, I was. It was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Me too. Episode 50 though, buddy.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. Obviously, episode 1 and then episode 25, and then we promised each other that that I'd get episode 50 also, and amazing coincidence that episode 50 brings us absolutely to the end of the year, and that we finish the year with episode 50. And man, I'm so proud. You know what I mean, of how far the podcast has come and the amazing guests that we've had on and the topics that we've talked about, and the way that the podcast seems to have sort of weaved its way through just the general content that's been generated over the course of the last 12 months, just in general across the whole industry, you know what I mean? And how the podcast has sort of weaved its way through all of that and become this amazing thick thread in respect to sort of just conversation. I'm ecstatic, and obviously you have a lot to be proud of also as the captain of the team, and I can't believe, like episode 25, and then how quickly it's all sort of come around.
Yeah, and it's been a big year, like it's just over a year since we started it. And I think the interesting thing for me is that as we've evolved with the podcast is the industry and the counter industry, the plant-based and vegan divisiveness or movement or whatever you want to say, like literally to this morning where this whole Game Changers documentary and the debunking by Kresser, and then this ruthless attack by James Wilkes, the executive producer, that like I'm an hour and a half through it. I started it early this morning, and it kind of goes to the heart of what I don't like about a lot of those people is that it is very personal, and it seems to be about us versus them, and it never has been for us, and you and I have spoken about this many times. We've invited the guys from Impossible Foods when they visited our offices here, spruiking their product, which, lovely people, but as soon as we asked to have the conversation that we were having in the boardroom in a public forum, they ran like cats to the hills because it was something that they needed corporate sign-off from, which for me was like, if you truly believe in what you're doing, your people that are out selling your product should be able to speak about it publicly as much as they are in a boardroom.
Yeah, it is phenomenal. It's certainly it's a very hot topic, and I think there's still loads more to come. I hope it just stays civil though, and that was hugely disappointing. How personal Kresser got.
He was attacked, man. Like, I think this is the thing for me. Like Chris Kresser, who's a medical doctor, who is a genuinely good human being and speaks ill of no one, never speaks badly of the vegan movement, the vegetarian movement, the plant-based movement. Delivers facts. And for that guy to come out, and he's a combat trainer, like that's his DNA. But I just thought, one, he'd clearly been coached by a litigator because it literally felt like a courtroom to me, and you had this incredibly strong, aggressive guy up against a guy that probably has never done a violent act in his life, and from the very get-go, Chris was rattled, and that came across, and I just think that's disappointing on every level.
Yeah. No, it's interesting times, and it's amazing how the podcast started. And you're right, it coincided with the release of my book, and it's amazing how much more sophisticated the whole podcast has become in terms of the quality of the content, the quality of the guests, the quality of the conversation. And there's, it's just amazing where we started, and both of us sort of started more looking for answers, and now we're a lot more educated, and as are our listeners, in and around sort of the good, the bad, and everything in between. And you say, you mentioned it's been a big year. It's been a big year. It's been a shit year too.
I was going to ask you that, man. Sum up the year, because it has been a shit year, I reckon. Across the board, not just at Vix Me, but talk us through it. And I won't even ask you for highlights and lowlights, because it really just has felt like one big, massive street fight to me.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, that's probably an apt description of it. Every year for me is it's a roller coaster. It brings pretty much everything, the good and the bad and the tough and the easy and the enjoyable and all the emotions, the whole spectrum of emotions or whatever. I'm used to that, you know what I mean? But this year was just brutal. It was brutal for external reasons, internal reasons. It's been a tough year for the industry. And when I talk about the industry, I'll talk about my industry, the meat industry, with everything that's going on with, if you recall and you remember how the year started with, literally it being confirmed that it's the worst drought in living history. That was quickly followed by the worst floods in far north Queensland. And then fast forward to the end of the year, and we've had the worst bushfires on record, especially across New South Wales. So, that's all had a massive impact on the meat industry. Then you lay over, a soft Australian dollar, which obviously makes our product far more attractive on the export market. African swine fever, they've escalated now. It's not a flu, it's actually a fever.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
So the severity of that whole thing has escalated also.
Yeah.
The challenges in around supply. Then, more specifically, the hospitality industry has been under a lot of pressure. Restaurants, they for the better part of struggle for the bulk of the year. A few restaurants have closed.
Many have closed.
Many,
like an enormous number. Like even today, a really high-profile one, we found out that they're going to close their doors on the 21st. And then others have been fires. Nomad had a fire and put them out of business for a couple of months. Woolshed down in Melbourne, the pier got condemned. It feels like the hospitality industry can't take a trick. The wages expose continues to hammer them.
Agitate and cause like a lot of fear amongst restaurateurs and so forth. Man, interestingly enough, I've, despite the fact that I've had literally my worst year on record, both personally and professionally, the last 3 or 4 weeks has been amazing for me, and the next 3 weeks are shaping up to be incredible. And I'm not going to lie that I'm personally counting down not the minutes or the hours or the days, but the seconds to 2019. I can't wait to see the back of it. But I'm super excited to sort of start with a clean slate in 2020.
Why the last 4 weeks? What's changed? Other than that crazy fast you did where you didn't eat for 13 days. You do look good though, man. Haircut, skinny.
Yeah. I've had a shave, had a haircut just for you, just for the podcast, just to finish the year off. Look, I on a personal level, I had a really tough year fighting a few sort of demons. Those demons, it's not drugs or alcohol or whatever, but just personal demons that I've sort of had to exercise and deal with. This whole thing with opening up in the US and New York and Bourdain and all that sort of stuff. That, when that seed was planted in 2017 or 2016 with Tony, I'm not going to lie, I struggled to get it out of my mind, and it consumed my thoughts and the excitement, the opportunity of it. And for that reason, I have to admit that I was distracted. I wasn't in a good rhythm in terms of having my finger on the pulse with regards to what was going on in my own business. I sort of fell out of love with not only the industry but my own business, which sounds pretty shocking to say, and most people might think, like, how the fuck can you say that you've fallen out of love with your business? You always talk about your business so proudly or whatever, and I do. Like, I'm still as proud as I am about this business, but man, it's been exhausting. The last 23 years, I've ran at 100 miles an hour, revved at 9,000 revs for those 23 years, and had my fair shares of ups and downs, which I've been really open and honest about and shared with everyone. And fuck, man, it just got to me, you know, like around October of this year, like I was in a bad place. I was in a really bad place. And I was in a bad place because, you know, of just my mind and my restlessness and my inability to, as my wife puts it, sort of just settle down and just be happy with what I've got. Then the business went through a really tumultuous sort of year, and, you know, a lot of redundancies and, you know, a lot of good decisions, a lot of bad decisions, a lot of people who have come and gone. And that's never easy for me, because my father and I have always prided ourselves on employing people, not letting people go. But all of that was on the back of redefining and redefending the business and going on a different path in terms of our strategic goals for the business over the next sort of 5 to 6 years. Man, my head was just it was fucked up. It was messed up, and I do a good job of covering up my emotions and fronting up every day and getting in the trenches and all that sort of stuff. But it took its toll on me, and man, something I sensed for the first time in my life that something was going to give, you know, and I hit the eject button. I needed to get out of VIX. I needed to get out of Sydney. I need just to get away and sort myself out and just get off the grid. And I chose to do that in the US, and sort of kept a really low profile for the first couple of weeks of October, and was over there with my wife and just got my head right, and made some big decisions, both personally and professionally. And I've come back from that trip re-energized, you know, with a high degree of clarity. I've got my humility back. I've got I lost sort of something that I always believed was a real asset of mine, and that was, you know, I've never not been anything but grateful for everything that I've achieved or done in my life, and I'd probably lost that, sort of maybe head in the clouds too much and not enough of my feet in the dirt type stuff.
Yeah.
And it is, I don't want to make excuses because I'm not one to do that, but I just lost my true north and I lost my bearings, and I just became a bit of a fucking idiot, you know what I mean, about just a lot of aspects of my life. And, you know, like, yeah, just finding that humility and finding, you know, reacquainting myself with what truly makes me tick. And what truly makes me tick is my love and passion for this business, for the industry, for our suppliers, our customers, and just as importantly, and probably more importantly, if I'm allowed to sort of rank them, our people, you know, the 180, 190 people that make up this phenomenal and great business, you know, just getting amongst them again and standing shoulder to shoulder with them and listening to them and working with them and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, I've still got my ambitions and I'm still hungry for success or whatever, but I've gone 180 degrees in the truest sense of the word, you know?
Yeah. And do you think the changes were absolutely painful, you know? And you and I have talked about this a lot, that perhaps some of them weren't the best decisions, but perhaps given where the industry was at, where the environment was at, where the economy was at, where you were at after 23 years, that despite some of those decisions being ill-timed, ill-informed, or whatever they happen to be, that if you didn't make them, then potentially that clarity that you found when you went off and got off the grid. I'm not sure how off the grid being in New York City is, but
probably super off the grid because you're just a fucking rat amongst 20 million others, just scurrying around Manhattan.
But do you think that despite how painful, not only was it, but still is, financially and those things, that the alternative potentially was even more painful because that getting your feet back in the dirt and refinding that passion and the will to be at the helm, not just be the CEO, but, you really have become the COO again of the business?
Yeah, I'm not crazily religious.
I don't know you're religious at all, man.
Well, there's certain parts of me that
really
can sort of, a little bit religious, but I'm more superstitious.
Yeah, superstitious. It's very different to religious.
Yeah, but there's a bit of
both wacky. But
yeah, both it just defines and explains me, But I wholeheartedly agree with you that things happen for a reason. And you're right. Like, I don't think I would have got to that moment in my life in October where now I feel that I can live my life for the next 10 or 20 years, with this purpose and this clarity that I've now got, hadn't I sort of been through all of those sort of things that you talked about. And you're right, like all of them were ingredients in respect to sort of getting to this final point where I had to pull this ripcord and I had to just hit the reset button and just get my head right and get my spirit right, my soul right, get my health right, get all of those things right. So I don't look back at anything while I in the moment I can get pretty angry about certain things and I can potentially even point fingers at people, which I don't like doing, but it's just a natural impulse or whatever. I've got no regrets with regards to anything that has happened and transpired over the last sort of 12 months because it's got us to where we are now. It's got me to where I am now. It's got the business to where we are now, which is in a really, really great place. And, for those people that don't know out there, we run an internal sort of comms TV show called Vix TV where I jump on for sort of 20 or 30 minutes, try for 20, but usually 30, and sort of just talk about what's going on around the business or whatever. And our staff know better than anybody about, this crazy sort of rough journey that we've all been on. However, like the last couple of months within this business, the energy and the positivity and the camaraderie and the respect and, we have 10 fantastic values that sort of define this business. And man, there is nobody within my organization that I don't feel embodies and embraces those 10 values in some way, shape or form. And that gives me my energy and my drive. And that's my fuel to sort of keep going in a brutally tough industry. You know what I mean? Like, it is getting harder and harder to be recognized. We're certainly recognized for the great job we do and being this innovative and quality focused, quality service, quality product focused business, but it's getting harder to charge a premium for that, a deserved premium for that. So it's tough, man. It's a brutal industry. It's only going to get harder. Supply is only going to get tougher. Restaurants, there'll be a continued natural attrition rate that sort of happens across the whole industry in respect to that. The world's only becoming a tougher, more brutal place. And then shit, man, you throw in climate change, which is the most real issue that humanity's ever faced. And man, things aren't good. But then there is some good and there's some silver lining there, and there's some amazing people out there who can do a lot of good and can potentially reverse what's going on out there. And they're our farmers and our producers, and it's a world document. You know, the pendulum's swinging, man. Like, I remember the beginning of the year, our whole business sort of potentially repositioned itself to be a major stakeholder in this whole plant-based meat alternative, fake meat sort of option. Like, we invested a big chunk of time, energy, and money investigating this whole thing, you know?
Yeah, and spoke to all of the big guys, Beyond Meat, Impossible Meat.
Yeah.
You know, I love how we talk about them and it goes dark.
Yeah.
That's superstition, man.
There you go, man. And now it's a fact now that regenerative farming is the only way that we can feed the world and reverse climate change. You know what I mean? In terms of
but does it not frighten you? It frightens me. Like, I had a bunch of mates, like 6 mates, over for a barbecue on Saturday night, and every single one of them was degree educated doctors, bankers, lawyers, accountants, whatever you want to call them, like, but all seriously intelligent guys in their, you know, mid-40s to mid-50s. Not one of those people that all watched the Game Changers and had formed a view on meat versus plants based on that, you know, piece of propaganda. And then when I talked to them about regenerative farming and asked them their understanding of that, not one of them understood what it was.
Yeah.
And that's pretty frightening, man.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I've been spending, as you have been, a lot of time with Aaron McKenzie, and he was on the podcast only a couple of weeks ago, and you know, he's an amazing individual and inspirational and well read and just centered, and you know, like we sort of been just talking about sort of different things, and you know, this whole regenerative farming thing, like. If we want to sort of talk about something wildly, potentially crazy, but both phenomenal, if some way, shape, or form things were to fall into place with it, imagine getting all of that super money that's sort of slushing around financial markets, the tens of billions, trillions potentially of dollars that are sort of that need to be parked into certain investments, that are being parked into investments that are potentially driving the bulk of all of this bad shit that's sort of contributing to why this world potentially might implode in 20 or 30 years' time or whatever. Imagine getting all of that money, or not even all of it, just a fraction of it, and investing it in regenerative farming and getting people to eat healthier and eat better, and at the same time not only feeding people with nutrient-dense, healthy sort of foods, but also supporting the ecosystem and putting all of that, you know, helping the sort of the environment and the soil and carbon sequestering the carbon in the soil and all that sort of stuff. Why aren't we diverting those tens of billions of dollars that are being invested in industries and businesses that
add no value? Like at TikTok, I sent you that thing on TikTok, which
madness, man.
$120 billion, like a billion users every single day, and you look at it and go, what does it do? It makes stupid little videos.
How's that helping the world? How's that feeding the world? How's that helping the environment or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. So what's the answer? What's the answer in terms of spreading the news? What's the answer in terms of getting people to sort of understand and march with their wallets and all that sort of stuff? Like, man, it's a tough journey and it's a tough road, but you and I and this business are going to continue as there are many others. Slowly, you know, there's a groundswell and the numbers are sort of growing or whatever in terms of the interest with regards to this particular space and whatever. And hopefully over time, the powers that be listen and somebody does do something about it. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have tens of billions of dollars to invest in people like Tammy Jonas or Luke Winder or Joel Salatin or Alan Savory or, you know, loads of other Charlie Arnott. And like, fuck, man, they're the people that we should be.
They're the solution.
They're the solution, man. They're the people that we should be throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at or whatever, because they're just not only just going to feed the world, they're going to improve the soil and help fight climate change and all of those sort of different things, you know.
I do think, though, and you sent me a thing today about Patagonia opening a secondhand store. And, you know, we've spoken about Patagonia more than any other business, you know, perversely on a podcast about meat, because of the way they've been able to honour their values, which, you know, are largely about zero harm to the world. They understand that to produce anything that there is harm, and, you know, people need to understand that for them to eat something has to die. But they've been able to build not just a small business, but a $1 billion business on the back of a small group of people that has grown in a time to be a much larger group of people that isn't just about buying product. It's about petitioning and fighting against the Donald Trumps of the world and the people that just want to destroy the land. And I do think this generation, the Generation X and Y, where are we up to? The Zers and
millennials.
Millennials truly will get behind something that they can hang their hat on and go, you know what? I do believe in this. They're too quick to do it with stuff like the plant-based meat, you know, and they don't understand it. They want to, like with many people in this world, including my friends, get their education from an hour and a half's entertaining documentary rather than, you know, the laborious time it takes to truly understand an issue and listen to these types of podcasts and the incredible people that we have on there. But there is enough evidence over the last 15 months for me to say I really do think people are starting to listen, and they're going to start putting their money where their mouth is, particularly on the retail side. You know, I think I have great empathy for all of our food service customers in their challenge of running profitable businesses, and that for them to be too romantic at this point in time can potentially be disastrous for them from a financial perspective. And then what good are they to anyone? But from a retail perspective, people can make a choice to pay more if they truly understand that the product that they're buying is good for them and good for the planet.
That's probably what I'm most looking forward to next year, for us to start putting some real hard data and some research behind all of that, you know. And we've talked about nutrient dollars, and rather than pricing meat per kilo, but pricing it per nutritional sort of benefit and value, that I reckon that's an amazing space that obviously in the new year we'll sort of ramp up our efforts and our energy. Just want to go back a little bit, just for the record, though. I really don't blame and hold anything against those people that sort of jump onto the whole vegan thing and plant-based thing and then dumped a whole lot of money into Beyond and whatever. Like, for the most part, I think a lot of those people that sort of follow those sort of trends or fads, or potentially sort of don't do their research before they buy and consume products like that or whatever, like, I do believe that the bulk of those people mean well, and they are desperate to find a solution, find an answer. And unfortunately, because maybe they're slightly more gullible or less read or whatever, that they're just sold this solution. Well, something guised as a solution, because they are genuinely, they've got the environment in mind, or they've got, you know, their own health or whatever in mind, and whatever. But it's not until, I suppose, they either go down that path and realize that they come out of that whole experiment worse off or more sick than when they entered, or whatever, or that they start scratching the surface, which is what we did, and recognize and realize that that's just the most processed food on the planet, you know what I mean, with ingredients of, you know, that you can't even pronounce or whatever, that are sourced from all over the world or whatever, that they go, oh shit, that isn't actually as good, or that isn't the solution, or that isn't going to help the environment, or whatever it might be. And I know that, you know, as a business, we've agreed that in terms of what we do, which is wholesale and retail meat, that will only retail and wholesale meat that's both good for the animal, good for the environment, good for the health and well-being of our customers. The fourth thing that I want to add to that is that not only does the meat that we sort of sell and procure and promote and so forth need to be good for the environment, good for your health, and good for the animal, but it's got to be good for the farmer too, because, man, they're the most critical link in this whole thing, you know what I mean? And I've just spoken to too many of them over the last couple of months, and they're either on the bones of their ass, committing suicide, or walking off farms. And you know, that's just something that we have to stop. You know, like without them, we are literally starved. Yeah.
And I think that's the other great thing that we're seeing with you know, the amazingly positive impact that Biggest Little Farm has had in the US. You know, obviously it's not available for viewing here yet, but I've listened to the guys that did that, and you know, similar to Tammy that we had on last week, these people that had no experience but were prepared to immerse themselves and take the risk to go and do something that they believed in, and they're starting to attract people from all ages and all walks of life that do want to be part of the solution. And, you know, the prophetic thing that you and I talked about more than a year ago with all of this is that perhaps farming is the solution to employment challenges and to youth suicide and depression and their lack of ability to concentrate. And, you know, your own son, Max, that's gone out into the country, and the growth that we've seen in that. Like, I think there's some really attractive things starting to happen in the farming space where people are going, you know what, that's sexy and exciting and it's outdoors and I want to be part of it. And that farming is so different to the large scale JBS feedlot farming that is always portrayed in these very emotional documentaries, and that people need to, if they're going to watch them, which I do too, because some of the stuff they speak about is absolutely true, but they need to balance it with listening to, you know, the Chris Kressers of the world, or watching The Biggest Little Farm, or, you know, even listening to some of the vegans that are far more balanced, like Rich Roll, that has a very open mind and a kind heart. And, you know, and I see the change in that guy as he starts to talk to some of these other people that go, plants and animals have to live in perfect equilibrium. You can't just have crops living on their own, and you can't just have animals living on their own. Sure. And we need to go back to that, and people need to start considering it. Schools need to start considering it as part of their curriculum, and doing ag science and those kinds of subjects again.
Yeah, definitely. And you do touch on another amazing and worthwhile facet of why more people potentially should be looking at a career in farming or whatever, which is, you know, mental health. So not only your own personal health in terms of a healthier lifestyle, outdoors, in the sun, you know, hard labor, physical labor, which is good for your body and all that sort of stuff. But it's also about your mental health, you know, that living in big cities and being stuck in traffic for a couple of hours every day and all that sort of stuff over time is debilitating and not rewarding. And I'd love for somebody to do a bit of a litmus test on different sort of roles and employment and all that sort of stuff. And I don't think that you know, with the right sort of conditions and so forth, and the right kind of support, that anything would tick more boxes than being involved in agriculture and farming and so forth, in terms of not just you know, lifestyle, but mental health, Vast parts of regional Australia are struggling because people are moving out of those areas, schools are closing, all of that sort of stuff. And we don't need any more people than what we've already, the infrastructure within Sydney and any major city in the world already can't cope with the number of people in all the major sort of hubs and cities anyway.
Yeah.
That there's a real argument for why we aren't spending tens of billions of dollars into, and you talk about, I wrote about it, Libby and I wrote about it in the book, this country was built riding off the sheep's back, you know what I mean? It's a common term that's coined and was coined for many, many years or whatever. Like, we sure aren't doing too well and God forbid if we didn't have the coal that we've got in abundantly available in this country that we're digging up and then sort of selling to China. God knows what sort of strife we'd be in as a country or whatever. Why aren't we diverting whatever funds we can, government, superannuation, financial, whatever, in back into agriculture, because that can be our competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Not only feeding this country, but feeding the world potentially.
Yeah, and, maybe we are starting to see it, with our friends like Rock and some of the stuff that they're starting to invest in, that they do see that not only is there a business opportunity in small scale and large scale agriculture, but there is an increasing pool of fund managers, et cetera, that want their money parked in that part of the economy because they see it as critical to the future of the country.
Totally.
2020 AP, like we can talk about what's gone on this year till the cows come home.
Yeah. And I literally don't want to talk about this year.
No, I want to wait for second. No, it's done.
After the podcast today or whatever, because I spent quite a bit of time talking about this year and the last couple of years and whatever. And what I'm really, really excited about is looking forward now. And like I said, the countdown's on till the end of the year, and before you know it, we've got a clean slate and a very long, clear runway in respect to sort of 2020, which I'm, irrespective of the challenges that obviously will present itself or whatever, I'm pumped about.
Yeah, I'm pleased. I want to ask people that listen, because we do have a really smallish but largish, very diverse and across many, many countries that are listening to this show now, to tell us what they want us to do with the podcast next year, who they want to have as guests and stuff, because we are going to change it up a little bit. Similar themes insofar as a agnostic platform for everybody, whether they're meat lovers or vegan lovers or everyone in between, and whether they're in hospitality or whether they're in health. But, we get lots of really constructive and positive comments. We get a few telling me that I talk too much, but that's all good. Like my wife says that too. But no, we'd love to hear from people.
I like the idea of that. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Drop us some comments on whatever platform you're listening to, and tell us what we're doing well, what we can improve on, and who you'd love to see on the show. And I know a few people have reached out to me and asked me to reach out to others that I absolutely will. I don't forget any of it. It's just time and resources and all those things. So, mate, I think we should close it out. It's been an amazing first season. It's been an amazing year, been a brutal year, but let's just wish everybody an absolutely cracking new year, because this show will come out just before the new year, and stay safe. And 2020 just sounds like the coolest year ever.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's got a ring to it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Party like it's 1999. Like, I think this one's got to be even better.
Yeah. No, I do want to, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank sort of everybody that's tuned into the podcast over the last 50 episodes. It means a lot to the both of us. It means a lot to the business. And like I said, it was never a propaganda piece. It was purely there, designed to create a platform to encourage conversation. So I appreciate everybody's support and comments. Wish everybody a fantastic, safe happy Christmas with family and loved ones, and obviously a very prosperous and safe sort of new year, and looking forward to 2020. And thanks obviously for all your hard work, and our man Louis over here in the shadows, always tweaking all the buttons and the cameras and the sound and all that sort of stuff to make us as polished and professional as everything that we do in this great business. And obviously want to thank, everybody within the business that gives us the ability to be able to sort of do these sort of things, and continue to innovate and agitate, which has always been my purpose, I suppose, in this business, to challenge and to agitate and to look at this industry through a completely different lens and from a very different angle to, I suppose, historically and traditionally how it's sort of been done. But it's been a really hard year. But like I said, the last couple of months, last few weeks have been fantastic. The next few weeks will be fantastic, and looking forward to season 2 of the Ultimate Podcast in 2020.
Awesome, buddy.
Thanks, Shori.
My pleasure, man.